My dear listeners, this is an original sci-fi story I wrote for you. If you'd like to support me, just subscribe to the channel. It really helps the growth. The scream that tore across the galaxy wasn't from blood or death. It was the sound of 1,000 empires realizing they had been wrong about everything. Every hollow feed from the core to the rim froze on the same image. 12 Drakari predator cubs, each the size of a shuttle, claws like scythes, eyes glowing with the ancient hunger of the galaxy's apex predators, stood in perfect, motionless formation behind one unarmed human. The man raised a single hand. The cubs dropped to their haunches as one, silent, obedient, tails curled in respect. No chains, no psionic collars, no broken bones. Just a quiet voice saying, "Good work, pack." The caption burned in 100 languages. Primitive species subdues untamable class at Erebus Academy. Zero violence. How? Billions watched in stunned silence as the footage looped. Because everyone knew the cubs. Everyone knew what had happened to the last two teachers. 3 months earlier, Elias Reed had stepped off the supply shuttle onto the blood-red dirt of Thaler 9. The Erebus Survival Academy was no ordinary school. Built into the cliffs of a death world where the trees had teeth and the rivers ran acid, it trained the future war leaders of every predatory species in the galaxy. Only the most promising and most dangerous cubs were accepted. Room 7 was the problem class. 12 Drakari predator cubs rejected by every other instructor. The first teacher, a towering Krellian warrior, lasted 6 days before a play fight, left him with a shattered exoskeleton and a permanent limp. The second, a Shadowfang Psi mage, fled after the cubs decided his mind tricks were cheating and clawed him half to death. No deaths, Drakari cubs weren't cannibals, but the message was clear. These young monsters respected only strength, and no one had any they understood. Humans were the joke of the galaxy. Soft, weaponless, no natural armor, no telepathy, no plasma glands. When the Academy put out an emergency call for a replacement, every species laughed, until Elias Reed, former Earth wildlife rehabilitator and survival instructor, was the only volunteer. Rector Vexer, a scarred adult Drakari whose mandibles could crush steel, met him at the gate. "Human," Vexer rumbled. "These cubs have injured every instructor sent. They will test you, break you. If you die, we will not apologize." Elias adjusted his simple khaki vest and smiled. "I've raised tiger cubs that weighed more than your starfighters. Let's try it my way first." The first day in Room 7 was pure chaos. The moment the door hissed open, 12 massive bodies lunged. Snarls shook the reinforced walls. The largest cub, Core, black-scaled with a white scar across his muzzle, charged straight at the small human. Elias didn't run. He didn't raise a weapon. He simply sat cross-legged on the cold floor, pulled a small metal harmonica from his pocket, and began to play an old Earth lullaby. The notes floated through the air like something alien and impossible. The charge faltered. 12 pairs of glowing eyes blinked in confusion. No fear scent, no aggression, just music. Elias lowered the harmonica. "Rule 1, pack. We don't hurt friends. Friends build things together. Anyone who wants to learn how to build a shelter that even a Thalorian behemoth can't break gets first pick of the treat pile tonight." The cubs hesitated. Core's lips curled back, showing rows of dagger teeth. But the smallest cub, little blue-scaled Rix, tilted her head and actually sat down. By the end of the first week, the class had rules. No punishments, only challenges. Team Shelter Day, Elias announced on day 9. "You have 2 hours. Use only what's in the training yard. Best shelter wins a full no-rules day tomorrow. No schedule, no orders." The cubs exploded into motion. Core tried to bully the others at first, but when Rix's clever use of acid vine ropes held better than his brute force logs, he actually listened. For the first time in their lives, the predator cubs worked as a unit instead of a brawl. When the winning shelter withstood a simulated behemoth charge, courtesy of the Academy's hollow trainers, Core looked at Elias and rumbled the first words any instructor had ever heard from him without threat. "Again tomorrow, pack leader?" Elias grinned. "Every day, kid." Week after week, the changes deepened. They played Capture the Flag, across the acid canyons, teaching strategy and trust. They listened to human stories around the evening fire, tales of wolves who protected their packs, of lions who raised lost cubs. Elias never raised his voice. When tempers flared, he simply sat between the snarling cubs and waited. Eventually they calmed, because the human never flinched, never smelled of fear, and always smelled of safety. The other instructors watched through the security feeds and shook their heads. "He's going to die," they whispered. But the medical logs stayed empty. Not a single scratch. Then came the final exam week. The alarm screamed at 3 local time. A massive migration of Thalorian behemoths, 30-meter-tall armored nightmares with jaws that could swallow a dropship, had been drawn to the academy by the scent of young Drakari. Thousands of them. The automated defenses lasted 11 minutes. Security teams were overrun. Rector Vexer's voice crackled over the emergency channel. "All staff, evacuate the young. Room 7 class is lost." "No." Elias cut in from the classroom, voice calm. "My pack stays. Cubs, remember the shelter game? Formation Delta. Use the cliffs. Protect the little ones." 12 predator cubs didn't flee. They moved like liquid shadow. Core took point, roaring a challenge that made the behemoths hesitate. Rix and the others used the exact vine and log traps they had practiced in the yard. Smaller cubs darted between massive legs, slashing tendons with surgical precision while the bigger ones drew fire. Elias stood on the wall with nothing but a spotlight and his voice, directing them exactly like he'd directed the shelter competitions. "Left flank now. Rix, drop the net." "Yes. Good girl." For 43 minutes the academy held. When the last behemoth retreated, bleeding and confused, the walls were scarred but standing. Not one student or staff member had died. The only blood belonged to the planet's own monsters. The next morning, the entire academy gathered in the central amphitheater. Rector Vexer stepped onto the dais, his massive frame casting a shadow over the crowd. Every galactic news drone in the sector was already broadcasting live. "I have served this academy for 30 cycles," Vexer began, voice heavy. "We believed only pain and dominance could forge warriors. We were wrong." He turned and bowed, actually bowed, to the small human standing beside the 12 cubs. "Elias Reed of Earth, you did not break these cubs. You did not beat them. You gave them something we never could, a pack worth dying for. The most primitive species in the galaxy, soft-skinned, clawless, without a single natural weapon, has done what no empire has managed in 10,000 years. Vexer straightened, mandibles clicking with finality. "Effective immediately, every class at Erebus will have a human instructor. We will learn from the species we once mocked. Because true strength is not the claw. It is the hand that teaches the claw when to stay sheathed." The transmission ended on the image of Elias Reed scratching Core behind the ear plates while the massive cub purred like a starship engine. Across the galaxy, recruitment stations for human survival instructors crashed under the traffic. Empires that had dismissed humanity for centuries quietly rewrote their doctrines. And in Room 7, 12 predator cubs who had once injured every teacher now guarded their pack leader with a loyalty no force in the universe could break. The weakest species had won. Not with violence, with patience, with trust, with the one thing the galaxy had forgotten how to give, a family. And the scream that started it all? It was only the beginning of the galaxy learning how to say one new word in every language. Human.